Hey everybody, welcome to a special edition of the Director's Garage Live. I'm going to control this music a little bit, get it down. I wasn't going to, I've been meaning to sort of go live-ish and kind of tell you guys everything that's been going on around here for the past week. It's been a little crazy, and I wanted to update you guys so you're in the loop and you know what's happening. Because there have been a lot of people asking, and I appreciate it. But hang on, I gotta find the music here. What did I do? This is just way too loud. Way too loud. There we go. That's better. So this is not going to be a typical show. We're not going to be talking about headphones. I'm going to be talking about everything that happened around here, and then and we'll get back to the regular programming on another show. This is just about this event that happened on our block and everything of it. And apologies, you're going to hear chainsaws going in the background. You're going to hear all kinds of stuff going on in the background. There's cleanup going around 24/7 right now. It's a mess. I want to start by saying we are okay. We're okay. Our house is okay. Clearly, this is my normal studio. There was a fire on our block. It was 50 feet from our front door. And I want to stress that I'm not telling this story to like make, oh boy, woe is me, because there are 10,000 stories in this city right now that are 100 times worse than mine. This is just what happened to me in the last week. And so I'm gonna walk you guys through this thing. You know, there have been fires all over Los Angeles. You know, it's burning down. There's more wind on the way tonight and the next day or two. They said on the news, hurricane force winds coming. And I'm like, well, what do we just have? So I don't know. I want to say that the firefighters and the emergency services folks, the power workers, the power line workers, these are amazing people. The cleanup crews, the guys who are cleaning up outside right now, just amazing. So with that in mind, what I'm going to talk about is what happened to us, but this is our own story. It is not as tragic as some of my friends. I have 6 friends who lost houses this week. We were fortunate, and I want to stress that up front. This story I'm going to tell is more about survival and rescue and that kind of thing. And we're obviously still here. So I'm going to lay out what happened today in this live stream so I can sort of get this off the table and we don't have to keep going back to it in other shows. We'll address it in this live stream, and then we'll go on to other things like our Audeze trip in an upcoming stream or upcoming video, depending on how I decide to present it. We did go to Audeze on last Friday, a group of us from the Hangover Hangout, which is the Patreon thing. We did a factory tour of Audeze. It was fantastic. I got to thank Peter James for doing that. But let's focus on what happened and then go from there. And if this'll be available. You can go back and play it later. I saw somebody said they got to leave. That's fine. This is just my story because everybody's asking about what happened. So I'm going to attempt to do this with multimedia, and it's going to be a little schlocky, but I've got some video to play, but it's off my laptop, so you're going to see all kinds of weird, other windows and crap up with stuff, but it doesn't matter. I'm just trying to give you guys an idea what happened. So let's see. How was I going to do this? We're going to let's go to the MacBook. And then I'm going to try something very bizarre. Okay, there we go. There's me. Okay, and sorry if this is out of sync. This is what I got. All right. So what happened on our block started with a tremendous windstorm. I'm going to play a clip of that first. This is what was going on the night of the winds. This was a week ago tonight. And you can see, look at this window. This window is bending. I want to show that again. And pardon my wife, she's swearing in this. The window is bending. That's how strong these winds were. They were 100 mile an hour winds. And I have never in my life, I've seen some things in weather. I have never in my life seen wind this strong. Now, I haven't been through a hurricane. I never lived in Florida. And that's when I stepped outside to record some of this. And in the process, a lot of trees and branches came down. This was in front of our property. That's me trying to clean some of this up. So that's the first thing. Let's see if I can show some of the... later on that night, we looked across the hill, and this was the fire in Sylmar that broke out. This was across the valley about 10 miles from us. And that ran up the hill so fast. Everything moved fast. When there was a fire, everything went up. This was the next morning. I went out to get a chainsaw because I needed to cut up all of these felled branches and whatnot. So that was the view from like Burbank over towards Altadena, where that tremendous fire went that took, I think it's 10,000 structures went up in Altadena. And that's where I think 4 of my friends lost houses, and then the other 2 were over in the Palisades fire. Palisades fire eventually worked its way toward us, but it never made that far. That was my shed. This is what happened in our backyard. There were 3 trees that fell down, and it went through the roof of our shed. So that was my attempt at keeping the shed clear until I can get that fixed. But it was that. Now that's just night 1. That was just night 1. So. And that was the worst of it. I mean, as far as, the fires were spreading everywhere, and people were, the fire department just, in 100-mile-an-hour winds, you can't put a helicopter up. You can't put a plane up. And the helicopters and planes are the primary defense system against fires in LA, wildfires, because they can drop this stuff called Fostex. It's this red powder, and it'll cut a line through an advancing fire that if you get enough of it down, it won't pass. So you'll see all these drops, these tankers with dropping this red stuff. It's called Fostex, and it stops fire it sets up a perimeter. And they couldn't fly any of that night. And they don't always run the big planes at night, but they'll run the helicopters to do helicopter water drops. And there was nothing flying in 100. You can't put a helicopter up in 100-mile-an-hour wind. It will just disintegrate. So So there was nothing up there to really fight these fires but ground crews who can't get anywhere near these wildfires. And basically, they just had to let it go. And it's unprecedented. Normally, the firefighters can get around these things and stop fires from advancing onto occupied structures. They usually can keep it from the neighborhoods and let it burn through the woods and the backcountry where there's no houses. This one, they couldn't do anything with. It was just what it was. And so it just burned and burned and burned. So I did all this brush clearance the day after these winds. This would have been Wednesday. Yeah, because Tuesday was the big winds. Wednesday was the day I cleaned up. And I had the chainsaw, and I cut all this stuff up, and it still didn't get to the backyard. That's still kind of ongoing right now. I have some help now, thank God, thanks to our neighbor. But we were sitting and watching the news, and another fire broke out on Wednesday night, and it was called the Sunset Fire. It was over in Hollywood. Now, Hollywood is much closer to us than the Palisades or Altadena. Altadena is to the east of us, and the Palisades are to the west of us. The Sunset Fire broke out just to the south of us. So if the wind was blowing north, it would have come over the hill, and then we would have been evacuated. There's, because there was nothing going to stop it if the wind was going north. But fortunately, the wind was going south, which was actually blowing it into the city of Hollywood. But we're watching this fire, and we're starting to get nervous. And Allie, my Mrs. Director, went out and got the cat cages together, and we pulled our documents because we know about this. You got to have a go bag, or you just have to have a plan to get out of there in the event of a fire. So she pulled all this stuff together, and we were just watching the fire over in Hollywood, and I looked out the window. We have this kind of bay window here, like the TV's like here, and then there's a window here. And I looked over, and there's a house out there that's a white house, and it was glowing orange. It was just a glow. So I thought, well, that's kind of jacked. I'm like, that can't be the Sunset Fire from here. That's still 2 miles from here. It can't be picking up flames from that. So I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I go out in front of our house, and I walk out the door, and I look over, and about 100, maybe 150 feet down the street, there's a house on fire, and there's flames pouring off of the balcony. And there are 2 people standing in the street, and I looked over, and I recognized them as the tenants, the subletters of the second floor. And they're just standing there, like this. And I clicked into management mode. When you're directing something that's live and happening in the moment, you learn how to prioritize things, and you learn how to, what has to happen when, and you try to see what's going to happen next and anticipate it and move on. So my brain flipped into that, and I thought, we got to get people out of here. So I started screaming fire, and Mrs. Director heard me yelling fire, so she went up the street, knocking on all the doors, screaming fire. And I was nervous because the house that's next to the one that was burning is my buddy Thomas, and he was inside. And I knew he was inside. And this fire was moving aggressively, and I was really worried about him. And so I was yelling too, fire, 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 get out, get out, get out. And his girlfriend, who was with him at the time, came out to the balcony, and she walked down the balcony and was standing because of the hill. Their house was above the house that was on fire. She's looking down on top of this fire below her, and she froze. And I got scared because I thought she wasn't, people, you fight, flight, or flee. You react, or people react to trauma in different ways depending on what the trauma is and the situation. And she had frozen, and I screamed to her at the top of my lungs, which is why my voice is still hoarse today. That and all the smoke in the area. I screamed, "Get Thomas and get out! Get him! Get out of that house! You're going!" And I used a lot of expletives in this. It was shameful. I don't normally swear, but I pulled out every word I had in the book, screaming, "Get out of there, or you're going to die! You are dead if you don't move. Move now! Go, go!" And she snapped, and she went in the house, and so that's another fire update. The guys, I'm telling you, it's nuts. And then I ran and I got our hose and I started spraying stuff all over the front of the. This is a pea shooter against a dragon. This is going to do nothing. But my instinct was like, start wetting stuff. So I just got the hose out and I just started spraying everything down at the street level and up into the trees. Now I was looking up at the fire, and I saw that the embers were coming up and the wind was taking them away from our house. It was blowing it uphill. So I thought, well, there's a good chance that we're okay here. I was barefoot, by the way. I was barefoot for the first 2 hours of this whole event. I was sitting barefoot in the living room, and I never thought to put shoes on. But at any rate, I I was spraying stuff, and I had called 911, which was by the way the first thing I did when I got to the street and I saw fire. I dialed 911 with this hand, and I was screaming. I was screaming out, and we got the fight. The fire department was there very quickly. Not there yet as of this point in the story. Let's see. Do I have anything? So here's some. That was a little later. Hang on, let me see.
Oh my God.
So this is pretty quick.
Thank God we got them here.
So that was like pretty quick right after it happened. That Mrs. Director shot that, and then here's a photo I snapped at the time. And what had happened was right here. There's a gas main on this house. This was the house that went up first. This is my neighbor's house, Thomas, who hadn't come out. And at this point, he's out of there. This is after he had left. But there was a gas main here, and this gas main exploded, and it started shooting fire onto the east face of this house here. And what you can't tell is that Thomas had been doing work on this house, and it was just plywood. So it was spewing gas out of the gas main onto a plywood wall, which was a matchstick. So Thomas's girlfriend came down the driveway and got in her car, and she pulled out of the drive, and she was going to drive off, and I don't know, for some reason she pulled back in the drive. Meantime, Thomas had gotten into his car, and he started backing down. So when she pulled back in the driveway for some reason, Thomas thought she would move, and he backed right into her and crashed into her. It was not a big crash, but it was enough. It was a jolt. And then so we're talking, go get this out of here. So his girlfriend pulled off the hill. Thomas got his car into the street, gets out of the car and says, "Michael, take my car to safety." And he runs back up the driveway. And I go, "What are you doing? What are you doing? This is, Thomas, you're going to die. You can't do this." And he goes, "I got to go." And he just ran off. And so I'm like, okay. So I jump into his Tesla, and he had taken the key with him. So the car is on, but it won't go into drive. And so now I'm like, oh, Jesus. So Thomas comes flying down about a minute later, comes flying down the driveway, and I run up the driveway, which was stupid because I'm running toward the fire. This is not smart. And I was pounding on his window, and I go, it won't move. It won't go into gear. You got to make so he gets out of his car. I get into the pickup truck. Why he's trying to rescue a pickup truck at this moment, I hadn't figured out yet. But he runs down, gets into his Tesla, and drives it away down the hill. The problem here is we have a very narrow street, and once the fire trucks get up, you're not going to get by them. They will take up the whole street. It's pretty much like it's a one-way dead-end street. It's still the old Stephen Wright joke. So it's very narrow. So when the fire trucks get in, so it was important to get the people on the street out because we had one neighbor who had just had a double lung transplant. Very susceptible. Any kind of soot, toxins in the air is going to really, it could be fatal. So I got into this pickup truck, and I backed it out of the driveway, and I pulled it up further down the street and pulled it over to the side, and I realized why he had to get the car at that moment. His dog was in the car. And he did not, he would have died before he let his dog burn in a fire. So that's why he went up to get this pickup truck. So I pulled the truck up the street. As I'm pulling up, all of the other residents on the street are getting out. And I get out of the car, and I remembered what was happening in the Palisades earlier in the day. So I remembered to take the keys out of the ignition and put them on the front seat of the car. So if the fire people needed to move that car for some reason, the keys were in it. This is just how my brain works in these situations. I think about, like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing to worry about? So I closed the door with the dog in the car, and I went back down the block. And at that moment, the fire trucks would come up, and I realized, oh shit, we got everybody out of here but ourselves. We're here now. We're not going anywhere. And so my wife had gone in to get the cats in cages because she thought we would drive out, but now there's no way we're getting out. So we just left them in their cages in the house for a few hours. I'm like, tough deal, kids. And we went back out front, and at that point we were just trying to assist in any way we can. We pointed out what we knew about the gas main problem, which was a problem until 4 in the morning. We wound up we got them some water for the fire, just trying to do things to make their lives easier because they're out there and it's a miserable job, and they're dealing with whatever they're dealing with too, and that's fine. So anyway, I should get on to this. Let me play some of this. This is the big fire movie.
Oh my God.
Nope, that's not it. Where's the big one? There's the big one. Oh no, that's the fire drop. That was right after the helicopters came to drop fire. So now, oh, here we go. Here's the long one. All right, so
we fear this house is going to collapse.
That's me.
All of the structures that are holding the house up are on fire, and it's burning from underneath.
This is my narration. If anybody thinks that doubts that I'm a news person first,
it's a total loss.
in my hand, you'll see I've got the hose. That's the hose I'm using to wet down the bushes and stuff. And this went on for some time. But I'll skip ahead. This is them, and you can see that this is where the gas was coming out onto the.
We're still here. We have nowhere to go. We're trapped. Fire trucks are blocking the street. We can't get out, and our cats are in the house.
So this thing just kept burning and burning and burning, and what was happening was these are the structures that hold up the house. These beams here, and the gas main is pouring gas, natural gas, blowing natural gas directly on this structure. So at some point in this, the firefighters went from up the driveway fighting the fire to backing out because they knew this thing gonna go. It's just a matter of time. The bottom of the house was so weakened. It was so weakened that the whole thing was going to come down. And that's pretty much what happens here in a second. But he lost he got out of there with his life. He got out of there with his girlfriend's life and his dog's life and a couple of cars, and that's all he's got. And how this didn't spread to our house is great firemen, the luck of the wind. I mean,
The firefighters have pulled back. They're worried about this house collapsing. All those beams are all that's holding it up.
everything down here is what I'm talking about. These right here. All of that is, that's all, and that's wood. That's not metal, that's wood. Inside of 10 minutes, guys. This is about 10 minutes after the fire. After the fire started on this, this is where this house was. Literally burned all the way across it. I haven't shown it like this before. Let's make less of me. Oh, there it comes. I'm half the distance between my house, the front door of my house, and this house. I'm about 25 feet from it. That was... But now they could get on top of the fire because they had no way of getting to the roof of that house to put the fire out. So now with it collapsed, they had a chance at fighting it. And that boom there was the other gas line for this house going up now. And that was a devil. That didn't go out until about 4 in the morning. They had to jackhammer the street at 3 in the morning to get to the gas line to put that out. That's just something. So this went for a long time. But anyway, let's see if I can pause here. So that was the fire that night, and eventually, see if there's anything else here. That's just another shot of it before it went down. Let's see if there's anything else here worth looking at. So that was what was left at about 4 in the morning. They just couldn't get things like this to go out because there were gas lines that were open. And that was a pesky thing. Eventually it did go out, and we were without power for a few days. I'm trying to find the aftermath stuff. So yeah, so we were without power for quite a few days after, and so I have a small little generator, and I have this battery thing that I kept charging with the generator to keep our stuff going, and I hooked up the hot water heater so at least we could take a hot shower. And but the biggest problem was looters, and this is a shot of the end of our street, and we actually had to build a barricade because these people, as we are, bring myself up, these people, as we're dealing with this tremendous, horrible situation, take these off for now, kept driving up because they wanted to see the fire. And then some people were coming up there because they see the power's out and they want to take what they can take. And so we were standing at the entrance to our street, and these cars would drive up with like 4 or 5 young men in them, and they'd go, and I'd go, "Excuse me, why are you here?" And they would say, "We're here to see our friend." And I go, "What's his name?" And they go, "No, you wouldn't know him. You wouldn't know him." I go, "Oh, really? Because I know every single person on this block. I know every single name. I know everybody who's here. Who are you here to see?" And they would go, "No, man, it's all good." And I go, "Okay, now I know who you are, and I have a photo of your face, and I have a photo of your license plate." And they would cover their faces, and they would drive off. And it was car after car after car doing this. And they were all nice cars. That's the weird thing. It wasn't like these beat up cars. These guys were coming up in BMWs. They were coming up in Alfa Romeos. They were coming up in Mercedes. It was stunning, and they were, and it was car after car. We still get to this day, the cameras keep going off because people keep coming up the street to look and see what's going on. But it was that first night. There's no power anywhere, and I'm in the house, and I'm like, got the gun. I'm sitting in the living room. Like, it was, I was like the Purge. I kept describing it as the Purge. It was like the Purge. There were these, and you'd hear thumps and bangs and things around the neighborhood, and you don't know if it's the house settling or the whatever. But it was like, it was sketch, guys. It was sketch. And nobody gonna touch my Ray Samuels B-21 Raider. So it was rough. We had 2 nights of that, and then the neighborhood got together, and we had this text chain which probably saved a lot of lives, or got people out anyway. And then through that, we communicated. We all went in on a security guard for the street. So there was somebody for the last 3 nights has been down there guarding the entrance to the street, not letting anybody by. So that was positive. That was a good thing. That was a good thing. And so we've been safer. And then with the power back on, we're not as worried anymore. There's a lot more cleanup to do. We've got a lot more cleanup to do. And the power's on, so I can do this. I could stream today, and I wanted to do this after I had a day or two. Power came on 2 days ago, so I did want to sort of get us all, get sort of a little bit more stable. And Mrs. Director's at work today, and I'm here looking for work still. So out of work newsman shooting fire video. All right, I'll go through some chat. I'm not going to dwell too much on this. I just wanted to share with you where we're at. I'm still kind of getting on my feet here. I have not we have not had time for any fun or any music stuff. It's just, right now it's just dealing with, cheers everybody. It's not a hump day happy hour, but it is a happy hour. And I want to share, get back to our regular stuff. So we're talking about Audeze and all that stuff, but I did want to walk you through what happened and share, because we're all friends, and this is something that this was impactful. I still haven't. There's a lot to process. I think the existential stuff. I never knew if there was a fire, if I would go toward a fire or run away from a fire. And I found out that I'm somebody who walks toward a fire. And I didn't know that. I don't think you know that until you're in that situation. And that's not a judgment against people who run away from a fire. It's just I didn't know which I was. And so that's interesting to me that I chose not to run. And I wound up, probably for worse, trapping myself here. And I don't know what that means yet. I don't know what that says yet, or if it says anything, or if it means anything. Maybe it's just a thing. These are the questions, because this was we came. It was a razor close. Like I said, we were at the mercy of the wind and great firefighters. Either of those two elements aren't there, our house burns. Maybe we burn too. And I happened to see a flicker out the window. That's it. Anyway, Kevin Jock, glad to see you're still alive. If you ever need another reason to move, this is the universe giving it to you. Yeah, well, we've been talking about that too. That's something that we're considering, but I still need to have a place to go to and a reason to go there. So I'm working on that too. I'm working on looking at stuff in Chattanooga and Knoxville and Asheville and whatever. But we're considering. I'm very concerned because our insurance is in jeopardy for sure. In fact, that's my next call when I get off of this live stream. I'm going to call our insurance agent before 5 o'clock. It's 4 o'clock now, so I probably should wrap this up soon. But glad to see your wife is safe. Thank you guys. Thank you for your warm thoughts. And I've been read all the stuff you guys wrote beneath the on the community page. I appreciate it. It was nice. So you went live. I went live. So that's the weekend. And the scary part is we still got probably 2 more days of wind, and there's supposed to be something called hurricane force winds coming tonight. So this could all get worse before it gets better. But I hope the worst is over. I hope for everybody's sake, because everybody's been through a lot. Yeah, Jonathan is here. Jonathan saw me on Friday. It's a lot. I don't want to get into what caused the fire. That's a whole other story. And there's some speculation there that I don't want to get into too much. Not in a public forum, anyway. Yeah, today and tomorrow are tonight and tomorrow are the 2 big wind days. There's something coming tonight, I hear. That's pretty nasty. Yeah, and I wanted, sorry guys, I wanted you to see the video up full. That's why I did it that way. I just wanted you to see, when I started playing the video, I wanted you to be able to see what was going on. Crazy how human race, JTB, will always be at the mercy of Mother Nature, and she brings the pain. Yeah, fires, hurricanes, all of it. So true. He's heard a few stories of people with their garden hose saving their place, be shoot or not. I didn't know. I was looking at it going, this ain't doing shit. But I'm gonna do it because it's the best I got. And I thought, you know, well, with the embers flying away, maybe I can keep the leaves cool enough to where they won't ignite. I was worried about the heat blast off of that house because, you know, if something gets hot enough, if you're throwing enough heat out, it can light something out on fire without having a flame directly touch it. This is a movie. Yeah, I know. It's not a good movie though. You see the best people in these situations helping any way they can. The firefighters. I mean, the firefighters. And then to be fair, the electric crew. It turned out that when Thomas's house went up, his two main leads to his house shorted, and it blew the transformer. And we have underground power just on our street because of the way the street was built in the 80s. So they had to pull. It took 2 days to get the power back on. They had to pull the transformer out of the vault in the street and replace. I've got some video from that too. It's pretty wild, but it's not on my computer right now, so I'm not going to pull it. But we're okay. Yeah. But those guys are heroes too because they've been working around the clock. Too bad houses in those areas can't be built with fire resistant. Well, there are codes. There's very strict codes in Los Angeles for both earthquake and fire prevention. And there's stuff, but nothing is going to survive a gas main shooting out a flame like a drag. It looked like what it looked like to me was like, you know, those test jet engines, you know, when they're testing a jet engine on the ground and they ignite the afterburner and you see it like sitting there on the ground. That's what it looked like. It looked like it's just a fire, just a sideways fire. Oh boy. Sideways fire jet just right into the side of his house. I mean, doesn't matter how much fire retardant you have at that point. He's already, and my neighbor, not the one who started. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't really know him that well, but the guy across the street who came out, and he's already started tearing down. He's going to rebuild. He's already got a crew out here tearing the rubble away, so they can start designing a new one. So yeah, Blue Eddy. Yeah, those things are great. They're great. Yeah, they, for whatever reason, I guess they couldn't. Arthur, I'm reading your comment here about how they installed shutoff valves in the street for every house, and I think they may have had one, but I don't think they could find it. I think they were just looking, and finally they just wound up drilling into the street. But it was at 4 a.m. They pulled out the jackhammer. We're like, please, can this nightmare be over? Can we get through this? Yes, I was ready to fight death to protect the headphones. I know. Yeah, and they were. It was Nephilim. I'm telling you, it was like I'm like, this is nuts. This is like Escape from New York kind of crap. Remember that old movie with Kurt Russell? I'm like, it was like that. It was like these people are just animals coming up the street and they're looking for stuff to steal. Unbelievable. And then the other thing that was happening, and I should mention this, these families were coming up in cars and they'd get out and they would film themselves in front of the house, and then they would start a GoFundMe saying, we just lost our house. Can you please contribute to our GoFundMe? That's been a scam that's been going on too. So they'll take a whole bunch of people up here, including kids, put them in front of the house and shoot selfies, and then put it on the internet as a GoFundMe. I mean, it's really amazing. It's truly stunning. what people are doing. Ice Parametrics remembers coming back to his place after a fire, very surreal and still traumatized a couple years later. I get it. Thanks, buddy Neil. Appreciate that. You know that. Sending best wishes from the UK. Appreciate that. We had a fire here in the line of police coming down. All the neighborhoods telling everyone we had to leave. Yeah. It was, we didn't, and the funny thing is, here's the joke of it. Like, we had gotten everybody out of the neighborhood. Thomas had come out. The fire trucks had pulled up. They had just gotten the water lines going, and we're all standing around looking because we're like, okay, we think, we're all going to make it through this. And the fire alert, the LA-wide warning system said, please evacuate your home now. There's a fire threat. It's a half an hour in. Thanks, guys. Think I figured that one out now. It's something. I had hero factor. I don't know if it's a hero factor. It was just like, what will you do? I don't think you know until you're in that moment. And I had no idea. Because you don't know. When your life is threatened, when you're looking at a big fire and it's coming and it's staring you in the face, and I don't blame anybody for any of their reactions. It's just what you do. I just didn't know who I was, and that certainly redefined. It's something I got to think about and figure out if it means anything. Maybe it means nothing at all. But it's something. It's like an existential thing. I like to read these crazier books like Power of the Myth and the Joseph Campbell stuff, and what does it all mean, and how does your mind work, and how do you your brain is always your brain develops models for everything, right? This may be too out there for you guys. I don't know. But your brain, it develops models for everything around you. You put everything into a model. And when you get a new piece of information or a new stimulus, your brain assesses it and tries to fit it into this existing model in some way. Sometimes you have to tear the model apart and build the model again to include this new piece of information. But it's how brains, it's like the thinking theory, thought theory. And so I'm trying to figure out how was I reacting in that moment. But it was very much like I would have covered a tragic event as a director. Everything slows down and you start thinking about what needs to happen next. I don't know. And so you make the next move. And part of what I've learned as a director, as directing stuff, is that you slow down because one wrong move can wind up costing you much more time, effort, energy when you can't afford it than slowing down and making the one right move. You can make 10 bad moves that will steer you way off course of where you need to be, but you're making choices because you're thinking too fast. If you slow down and analyze and then figure out what needs to happen next in the flow of things, and then you make your decision, even though it took you more time to get to that decision, you wind up spending less time on it, and the whole thing runs more efficiently. And I think that's sort of something that I got to, look at a little bit, and maybe not on the air. Okay, guys. All right, that was all I just wanted to do, was come on today and give you an update. Our power's back on. The house is still kind of a mess, but we did clean and clean and clean and clean. So we got a lot of the smell out, but the smell is in the neighborhood. And if you know anything about house fires, they smell very, very different from wildfires. Wildfires smell like charred wood. House fires smell like ick, because it's not just the house, the wood that's going up. It's the cleaning supplies. It's the hard drives and the computers and the plastics and the plastic, the PVC conduit, and all of that stuff all burns. And it gives this acrid smell. It's not like a forest fire. It's very much like it's this incredibly gagging, awful smell. So that that was that's pervasive. That's everywhere in the neighborhood. Anytime you step outside, that's what you're faced with. You just get this really nasty, nasty smell. And yeah, we're mad at the politicians. We're very upset with all the politicians, starting with the mayor, ending with the governor. Nothing seems to be well thought out these days, and well, that'll be something else they'll want to address. All right, guys, that's just it. I just wanted to give you guys, a little update on what's happening. I know you guys were wondering. I thank you for the messages, the texts, the emails, all that stuff. Appreciate it. We'll get back to our normal stuff in a few days. I just have to, assess, and I still have to find a job. So if you're out there in the world and you're watching this and you need a director for something or somebody who can organize something and keep things running, let me know. That's what I do. All right. Cheers, everybody, and I'll see you before you know it with a better voice, too. My voice is just shot. Cheers, everyone.